He rescued a crying experiment from its cage. Now its creator hunts him across the galaxy. Dax heard the crying 3 corridors deep into the facility's restricted wing. He froze mid-step, one hand on the data module he'd just extracted from the research terminal, the other resting on the plasma pistol at his hip. The sound cut through the sterile hum of air recyclers. Raw, vulnerable, utterly wrong for a place that dealt in genetic modification and bioweapons development. The plan had been simple. Get in, steal the gene sequencing data his client wanted, and get out before anyone noticed. He'd done it a dozen times on a dozen stations just like this one. The crying continued, hitching into a small, broken whimper. He was moving before he made the conscious decision, his boots silent on the polished floor as he followed the noise deeper into the wing. His jaw tightened. 12 minutes before the security sweep cycled back to this sector. No time for complications. The corridor terminated in a reinforced door marked Authorized Personnel Only, Genetic Synthesis Lab 3. Dax pressed his palm against the access panel, letting the cracked security bypass module in his glove do its work. The lock clicked, the door slid open. The lab beyond was dimmer than the corridor, lit by the soft glow of monitoring equipment and containment fields. Rows of cylindrical tanks lined the walls, each holding suspended specimens in various stages of development. The crying came from the back corner. He moved between the workstations until he found it. A reinforced containment cage, maybe 4 feet to a side, its bars humming with a low-level energy field. Inside, huddled against the far corner, was a creature unlike anything he'd seen in 15 years of running cargo routes through 12 systems. She was small, no larger than a child, but her proportions were all wrong for human youth. Lithe body covered in what looked like fine, short fur, the color of sea foam, delicate limbs wrapped around herself as she trembled. But it was her face that stopped him, heart-shaped, almost human, except for the large eyes currently squeezed shut against tears and the distinctive pointed ears pressed flat against her skull. Those ears had a gradient of color, darker at the tips, that matched the flowing hair cascading down her small form. She looked up at his approach. Her eyes were enormous, golden green, and wet with distress. "Hey," Dax said quietly, crouching down to bring himself closer to her level. The creature flinched, pressing herself harder against the back of the cage. Her ears remained flat, her tail, he noticed it now, thin and expressive, wrapped tight around her legs. "I'm not going to hurt you," he continued, keeping his voice low and steady. She watched him with those unnaturally large eyes, her breathing rapid and shallow. Dax examined the cage, standard biocontainment energy field integrated into the physical bars. His bypass module could handle it. He checked his display again. 8 minutes. "I'm going to get you out of here," he told her, already pulling the module from his glove and attaching it to the cage's control panel. The creature made a sound, something between a question and a plea. The module worked through the security protocols faster than the door had. The energy field flickered and died. The cage door clicked open. The creature didn't move. Dax reached in slowly, extending one hand palm up. She stared at it, then at his face, then back at his hand. Her ears twitched forward slightly. After a long moment, she placed one small 3-fingered hand in his. Her palm was warm, her grip hesitant. "That's it," he said, helping her crawl out of the cage. She was lighter than he'd expected, her bones delicate beneath the soft fur. When she stood beside him, the top of her head barely reached his hip. She looked up at him, and something in those eyes made his chest tighten. Intelligence, awareness, and a desperate hope that someone had finally come for her. Alarms shrieked through the facility. "Shit," Dax muttered, scooping the creature into his arms. She made a startled sound, but didn't fight him, instead clinging to his jacket with both hands. He ran. The corridor blazed with emergency lighting, all red strobes and blaring warnings. His mental map of the facility recalculated on the fly. Boots pounded somewhere behind him. Shouts echoed through the ventilation system. The creature buried her face against his chest, her small body trembling with each impact of his feet against the floor. Dax hit the emergency stairwell at full speed, taking the steps 3 at a time. 2 levels down, he shouldered through another door into a maintenance corridor. Service passages always led to cargo bays eventually. His ship, a battered Nomad-class courier called the Vagrant's Chance, sat exactly where he'd left it. He sprinted up the loading ramp, the creature still clutched against his chest, and slammed his fist against the door controls. Close and seal, prep for immediate departure. The ship's AI responded with a cheerful chime as the ramp retracted. Dax took the ladder to the cockpit one-handed, the creature now clinging to him like she was part of his body. He dropped into the pilot's seat and his hands flew across the controls. Magnetic clamps disengaged with a thunk that resonated through the hull. Maneuvering thrusters fired, pushing the Vagrant's Chance away from the station just as emergency bulkheads began to close across the docking bay entrance. "Not today," Dax growled, angling the ship's nose down and punching the sublights. The courier shot through the narrowing gap with meters to spare. The creature made a small squeaking sound. Dax's grip tightened on the controls as the station's defense grid lit up behind them, tracking solutions, painting his console red. "Hold on," he told her and opened the throttle wide. The stars stretched. Space folded. The Vagrant's Chance dropped into jump space with a shudder that rattled every bolt in her frame, and the station vanished into the distance behind them. Dax waited until the jump calculations stabilized before he let himself breathe. The creature had loosened her death grip on his shirt and was now peering around the cockpit with obvious curiosity, her ears swiveling to track each new sound. "Well," Dax said, looking down at her, "that could have gone better." She tilted her head at him, those golden-green eyes studying his face with an intensity that felt almost human. His console pinged. "Incoming transmission, wideband broadcast, highest priority." Dax frowned and opened the channel. A face filled his screen and every thought in his head went silent. She was beautiful in a way that made his mouth go dry. Pale skin with the faintest suggestion of natural patterns marking her cheeks and throat, sharp features that suggested both elegance and danger. Her hair fell in long waves, the same seafoam color as the creature's fur, darkening to deep jade at the tips. But it was her ears that confirmed what he was seeing, distinctive, pointed, rising from her skull with the same gradient coloring, twitching with barely contained fury. Her eyes, the same golden green as the creature in his lap, burned with cold rage. "Whoever you are," she said, her voice carrying an accent he couldn't place, musical but edged with steel, "you have made a grave mistake. That specimen is the culmination of 12 years of genetic research. It belongs to me. Return it immediately to Helix Station, or I will personally ensure you spend what remains of your short life regretting this theft." Dax stared at the screen, at those eyes, those ears, that face. Then he looked down at the creature curled in his lap, studying him with innocent trust. His stomach dropped as understanding crystallized with brutal clarity. The creature looked exactly like the woman on his screen, identical in every meaningful way, just smaller, softer, designed to fit in someone's arms and gaze up with absolute devotion. "Oh hell," Dax whispered. The woman on the screen leaned closer, her pupils narrowing to vertical slits. "I am Dr. Seris Vanthal," she continued, each word precisely enunciated. "You have stolen my life's work. I will find you. I will take back what is mine, and you will wish you had never heard that creature cry." The transmission cut to black. Dax sat in the sudden silence of his cockpit, the creature in his lap now making soft, concerned sounds as she patted his chest with one small hand. He looked at her, looked at the blank screen, where that fierce, beautiful face had been moments before. He'd rescued her from whatever lonely hell that cage represented. And now her creator, the woman she'd been designed to mirror, to love, to never leave, was coming for them both. The creature, Dax couldn't keep thinking of her as just the creature, curled against his chest as he plotted their next jump. Her small fingers traced idle patterns on his shirt, her breathing finally steady after the chaos of their escape. Every few moments, those distinctive ears would swivel toward a new sound, tracking the ship's ambient noise with obvious fascination. "Need to call you something?" Dax muttered, pulling up star charts on his secondary display. She chirped at him, a sound almost like a question. He studied her face. Those eyes held far too much awareness to belong to a simple animal. Whatever Dr. Seris Vanthal had created, it understood more than it could communicate. "Miri," he said finally, "that work for you?" Her ears perked forward. She pressed her small forehead against his jaw, a gesture he was starting to recognize as affection. "Miri, it is." The navigation computer chimed, offering 3 potential routes, deeper into the outer reaches. Dax selected the one that threaded through the most contested space, territories where multiple factions claimed jurisdiction, and no one asked too many questions. The kind of place where a man could disappear if he needed to. And he definitely needed to. He'd pulled up everything he could find on Dr. Seris Vanthal during the first hour of their jump. Brilliant didn't begin to cover it. 3 advanced degrees in xenobiology and genetic engineering before she was 30. Lead researcher on the Companion Species Initiative, whatever that meant. Dozens of published papers on empathic bonding and genetic memory transfer. Then, 5 years ago, she'd gone dark. Accepted a position at Helix Station and vanished from the public record. The articles included images, professional headshots that didn't do justice to what he'd seen on that transmission. In the photos, her expression remained carefully neutral, but those eyes still managed to convey an intensity that made his pulse quicken. One image showed her at a conference, her head turned slightly to address someone off camera. The lighting caught the gradient in her ears, the subtle patterns on her skin, the way her hair seemed to flow like water even in a still photograph. He'd stared at that image longer than he should have. Miri made a soft sound, pulling his attention back to the present. She'd noticed the star chart, her small hand reaching out to touch the holographic display. Her fingers passed through the projected light, and she jerked back, startled. Then, more carefully, she tried again. This time she seemed delighted by the way the stars rippled at her touch. "Yeah, it's pretty neat," Dax agreed, a smile tugging at his mouth despite everything. The smile faded when his proximity alarm shrieked. Dax's hands flew across the controls, pulling up tactical displays. A ship had just dropped out of jump space directly in their path, smaller than the Vagrant's Chance, sleeker and burning hard on an intercept course. How the hell? He didn't finish the question. She'd tracked him somehow. Through the data module he'd stolen, through some tracer in Miri's biology. It didn't matter. She was here. "Hold tight," he told Miri, securing her in the co-pilot's seat with the crash webbing. She chirped at him, her ears flat with anxiety. The comm crackled to life before he could reach for it. "You're faster than I expected," Seris said, her voice filling his cockpit like smoke, "but not fast enough. Cut your engines and prepare to be boarded." "Not happening, Doctor," Dax replied, already plotting evasive maneuvers. "Then I'll take my property by force." Her ship fired, not weapons, a magnetic grapple that shot across the gap between them with frightening accuracy. Dax rolled the Vagrant's Chance hard to starboard, feeling the old courier groan in protest. The grapple missed by meters. "You're good," Seris admitted, and he could hear the predatory interest in her voice. "But I'm better." She dove at him from above, her ship moving with a grace that suggested either exceptional piloting or an AI far beyond standard models. Dax threw the Vagrant's Chance into a corkscrew spin, sublights screaming as he pushed them beyond recommended tolerances. Miri made a distressed sound. I know, Dax muttered through gritted teeth. "Almost done." Seris matched his spin, staying on his tail like she could read his mind. Another grapple shot, this one closer. Dax felt the ship shudder as it glanced off his aft shielding. He needed an edge, something she wouldn't expect. The asteroid field. Navigation had flagged it as a hazard zone, strongly recommended avoidance. Perfect. Dax angled toward it, pushing the sublights harder. Seris followed without hesitation. The first asteroids appeared on his display, scattered rocks tumbling through the void in lazy orbits. He threaded between them, using the courier's smaller profile to his advantage. "Clever," Seris said, "but suicide isn't the same as escape." "Who says I'm trying to escape?" Dax replied, grinning despite himself. He led her deeper into the field, where the rocks grew denser and the gaps between them narrower. His hands moved across the controls with practiced precision. each adjustment calculated to keep them alive while making the flight look more desperate than it was. Let her think he was panicking. She stayed close, her ship's nose nearly kissing his exhaust ports. Then Dax saw what he'd been looking for. A massive asteroid, easily 10 times the size of his ship, with a narrow canyon running through its center. The gap was barely wide enough for the vagrant's chance. Her ship would never fit. He dove for it. "Don't," Seris warned, and for the first time he heard something besides cold fury in her voice. "That gap is too narrow. You'll hit the walls." "Thanks for the concern," Dax said and plunged into the canyon. Stone walls flashed past on either side, close enough that he could see individual mineral striations in the rock. His shield sparked as they scraped against an outcropping. Miri had her eyes squeezed shut, her small hands gripping the crash webbing. Behind him, Seris pulled up hard, unable to follow. Dax emerged from the other side of the asteroid and immediately cut all power, letting momentum carry them into the shadow of another large rock. He held his breath, watching his sensors. Seris's ship circled the asteroid field once, twice, scanning. Then she spoke, her voice soft and dangerous over the comm. "Impressive. You have skills I didn't anticipate." "I'm full of surprises," Dax replied quietly. "So am I," she said, "and you've just made this considerably more interesting." There was a pause. When she spoke again, her tone had shifted into something that made heat crawl up his spine. "I'm going to enjoy hunting you," she continued. "Every system you run to, every station you think might hide you, I'll be there. And when I finally catch you, when I have you cornered with nowhere left to go, I'm going to make you understand exactly what you took from me." The way she said it, low, intimate, promising things that weren't entirely about punishment, sent his pulse racing for reasons that had nothing to do with fear. "Looking forward to it," he heard himself say. Her laugh was soft and deadly. "Good." Her ship vanished from his sensors, dropping into jump space and leaving them alone in the asteroid field's shadow. Dax sat in the sudden silence, his heart hammering, his hands still gripping the controls hard enough to make his knuckles white. Miri chirped at him, concerned. He looked over at her, at those innocent eyes so like the fierce ones that had just promised him both heaven and hell. "Yeah," he breathed, "we're in trouble." But as he plotted their next jump, he couldn't quite make himself regret it. 3 jumps and 5 days later, Dax learned that running from Dr. Seris Vanthal was like trying to outpace his own shadow. She found them on Tarvos Station, a grimy trading hub in the Kessler Reach where half the docked ships were running illegal mods, and the other half didn't technically exist. Dax had been restocking supplies in the lower market when he felt the hair on the back of his neck stand up. He turned, scanning the crowd. There, 20 meters back, moving through the press of bodies with fluid grace that made everyone else look clumsy. Seris wore dark clothing that hugged her frame, practical but somehow elegant. Her hair was pulled back, revealing the full elegant sweep of her ears, those golden-green eyes locked onto his across the distance. She smiled. It was the smile of a predator that had just cornered its prey. "Dax." He grabbed Miri from where she'd been perched on his shoulder, clutching her against his chest as he shoved through the crowd. Behind him, he heard shouts as Seris gave chase. She moved faster than should be possible, her alien physiology giving her an edge his human body couldn't match. He ducked into a maintenance corridor, then another, trying to lose her in the station's guts. His lungs burned. Miri clung to him, making small, distressed sounds. "Almost there," he panted. A door ahead, he hit it running, emerging onto a cargo platform overlooking the station's main hangar. The vagrant's chance sat 3 levels down, her loading ramp already extended on remote command. Footsteps behind him impossibly close. Dax spun. Siri stood 5 meters away, her chest rising and falling with exertion. This close, he could see the subtle patterns marking her skin, delicate whorls along her throat and collarbone that disappeared beneath her collar. Her ears were pinned back, aggressive. Her pupils had narrowed to slits. "Enough running," she said. "You first," Dax replied, setting Miri down behind him. Seris moved. Fast. She closed the distance before he could react, her hand lashing out to catch his wrist. He twisted, using her momentum against her, throwing her into a spin that should have put her off balance. She rolled with it instead, her legs sweeping out to catch his ankle. They went down together. Dax hit the deck hard, Seris on top of him. Her weight pressed him flat, her thighs straddling his hips. One hand pinned his wrist above his head, while the other caught his jaw, forcing him to meet her eyes. "I've been tracking you for 5 days," she said, her voice low and intense. 5 days watching you care for something that was never meant to leave my side. She was crying, Dax shot back, in a cage, alone. She was resting between socialization sessions, Seris countered, but something flickered in her eyes. "You don't understand what you've done." "Then explain it to me." Her grip on his jaw tightened. She leaned closer, her breath warm against his face. This near, he could smell her. Something sharp and complex, like ozone and summer storms and growing things. "She's mine," Seris whispered. "Every cell, every thought pattern, every emotional response, I created her. She carries my genetic code, my neural pathways, pieces of my consciousness woven into her being. Taking her is like taking a piece of my soul." "Sounds lonely," Dax said quietly, "creating something that perfect just to keep it locked away." Her eyes widened. For a moment, something raw and vulnerable crossed her face, then her ears flattened completely and she bared her teeth. "You know nothing about me." "I know you're brilliant," Dax said. "I know you're obsessed with your work. And I know you made her because you wanted something that could never leave you, never disappoint you, never—" Seris kissed him. It was aggressive, claiming, her mouth hard against his. Dax's mind went blank. Then his free hand came up, tangling in her hair, and he was kissing her back with equal intensity. She made a sound low in her throat, something between a growl and a purr, and her body pressed harder against his. The kiss broke as suddenly as it began. Seris pulled back, her pupils blown wide, her breathing ragged. She stared down at him like she couldn't believe what she'd just done. She started. Miri chirped loudly behind them. They both turned to look. The small creature stood at the edge of the platform, her ears flat with distress, her tail lashing. She was staring at them both with obvious agitation. Seris's expression softened immediately. She released Dax and moved toward Miri, her hands extended in a placating gesture. "Miri, sweet one," she murmured, her voice transformed into something gentle and achingly tender. "I'm not hurting him. I would never—" Miri backed away from her, then turned and ran to Dax instead. The devastation on Seris's face was immediate and absolute. Her ears drooped, her shoulders curved inward. She stared at Miri, at this creature she'd created to love her unconditionally, choosing someone else. "She doesn't remember you," Dax said quietly, climbing to his feet with Miri in his arms. "How long was she in that cage?" 3 days, Seris replied, her voice hollow. "I had to run full genetic scans, make sure the modifications were stable before." 3 days alone for something with her intelligence? Seris flinched, her hands curled into fists at her sides. "I was going to come back," she said. "I always come back. She knows that. She should know that." "Maybe she does," Dax offered, "but she also knows I let her out." Seris looked at him then, really looked at him. Her eyes traveled across his face like she was memorizing every scar, every line, every detail. "Who are you?" she asked. "Someone who made a mistake," Dax admitted. "I thought I was rescuing her from a monster. Turns out it's more complicated than that." "Considerably more," Seris agreed. Miri made a soft sound, looking between them both, her ears swiveled, uncertain. Then she went rigid in Dax's arms. Her breathing became rapid and shallow. He felt heat radiating from her small body. Too much heat, too fast. "What's happening?" he demanded. Seris moved instantly, her hands reaching for Miri. This time the small creature didn't resist, going limp as Seris took her. The scientist's fingers pressed against Miri's throat, her expression transforming into focused concern. "No," she whispered. "No, not yet. It's too soon." "What's wrong with her?" Seris met his eyes, and the fear he saw there sent ice through his veins. "She's dying," Seris said flatly. "The separation is killing her. I designed her biology to require my presence, my pheromones, my genetic signature, constant proximity to me. Without it, her system is shutting down." Dax felt the words hit him like a physical blow. "How long?" Days, maybe hours, Seris replied. I need to get her back to my lab, start treatment immediately. Then go, Dax said. Take her. Seris shook her head, her expression anguished. It's not that simple, she said. Look at her. Dax looked. Miri's eyes were open, tracking between them both, even as her small body trembled. Her hand reached out, touching Seris's cheek. Then she extended her other hand toward Dax. She's bonded to you too, Seris whispered. She needs us both now. The station's security alarms began to wail. Someone had reported their fight. They had minutes, maybe less, before armed guards arrived. Seris looked at Dax, her face raw with emotion. Come with me, she said. Help me save her, please. Dax stared at this fierce, brilliant woman holding the dying creature he'd tried to save. Every instinct screamed at him to run. She was dangerous. She was obsessive. She'd hunt him forever if he refused. But Miri's small hand was still reaching for him. Tell me what to do, he said. Seris's ship was exactly what Dax expected from someone like her. Sleek, efficient, and filled with equipment he couldn't name. The medical bay took up nearly half the available space, its walls lined with monitoring systems and containment fields that hummed with barely audible frequencies. She'd secured Miri on the examination platform, sensors attached to the small creature's chest and temples. Readings scrolled across multiple displays, none of them looking good to Dax's untrained eye. Her cellular cohesion is breaking down, Seris explained, her hands flying across the controls with practiced precision. Without the regulatory pheromones my body produces, her immune system is attacking itself. It's treating her own cells as foreign. Can you fix it? Dax demanded. I can stabilize her, Seris replied, but it won't last. She needs constant exposure to me now, and apparently to you as well. She glanced at him, something complex moving behind those golden-green eyes. Dax moved closer to the platform. Miri's breathing was labored, her small chest rising and falling too rapidly. He touched her hand, and her fingers immediately curled around his. The heat radiating from her skin had lessened slightly, but she still felt too warm. What did you mean, she's bonded to me? He asked quietly. Seris was silent for a long moment, adjusting settings on the medical equipment. When she finally spoke, her voice carried a weight he hadn't heard before. I designed her to form deep empathic bonds, she said. It's her primary function, to connect completely with another being, to read their emotional states, to provide companionship that's perfectly attuned to their needs. She was supposed to bond with me. Only me. But she bonded with me instead. No, Seris corrected, meeting his eyes. She bonded with you in addition to me. I can feel it through our genetic link. She carries fragments of my consciousness, which means I experience echoes of what she feels. The implications of that statement settled over Dax like a weight. You felt everything, he said slowly, when I held her on my ship, when she fell asleep against my chest, when she... Yes, Seris cut him off, her ears flattening slightly. I felt all of it. Every moment of comfort she found in your arms, every sense of safety and warmth. It was like watching myself fall for you through her eyes. The air between them felt charged. Dax's pulse quickened. Is that why you kissed me, he asked. Back on the station? Seris turned away, focusing intently on the medical readouts. I kissed you because you made me feel things I specifically designed Miri to prevent, she said, her voice tight. Uncertainty, jealousy, desire for something I couldn't control. That's not an answer. She spun to face him, her expression fierce. I kissed you because for 5 days I've been feeling what she feels when you touch her, and it's been driving me insane, she snapped. I created her to be everything I am without the flaws, without the isolation, without the fear of connection, without the walls I built to keep everyone at a distance. And then you came along and gave her everything I was too afraid to want for myself. The confession hung between them, raw and honest. Dax moved around the examination platform until he stood directly in front of her. Seris held her ground, her chin lifted defiantly even as her ears betrayed her nervousness with small, anxious twitches. You're not as alone as you think, he said quietly. I've been alone for years, she replied. It's safer that way. Safer for who? She opened her mouth to respond, but Miri made a small, pained sound. They both turned immediately. The small creature's eyes were open, looking at them both with obvious distress. Seris's entire demeanor shifted, becoming gentle as she leaned over Miri. "Shh, sweet one," she murmured. "I'm here. We're both here." Miri's hand reached up, touching Seris's face. Then she extended her other hand toward Dax. He took it without hesitation. "She needs skin contact," Seris said. "My pheromones are most effective through direct touch. You should—" She paused, something uncertain crossing her face. "You should be touching her too. The bond is stabilizing her as much as my biology is." Dax moved closer until he was standing shoulder to shoulder with Seris. He placed his hand on Miri's small chest, feeling her heartbeat beneath his palm, rapid but steadier than before. Seris's hand covered his, her fingers intertwining with his over Miri's heart. Her skin was warm, softer than he'd expected. He felt her pulse through their joined hands, quick and strong. "This is insane," he said. "Most of my best work is," she replied. He looked at her profile, the elegant line of her jaw, the gradient coloring in her ears, the faint patterns marking her skin. She was focused entirely on Miri, her expression soft with a tenderness that transformed her fierce features into something breathtaking. "Why did you really create her?" Dax asked. Seris was quiet for so long he thought she wouldn't answer. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely above a whisper. "Because I wanted to know if I was capable of loving something," she admitted. "My work consumed me for so long that I forgot how to connect with anyone. I thought if I could create something that was part of me, something that understood me completely because it literally shared my consciousness, then maybe I could remember how." "Did it work?" She turned to look at him, and the vulnerability in her eyes made his chest tighten. "I don't know," she said. "I never let her out of the lab long enough to find out. I kept running more tests, more refinements, always finding another reason to delay. I think I was afraid." "What?" "That even something I created specifically to love me might eventually choose to leave," she said quietly. "That I'm fundamentally alone, not because of circumstance, but because of something broken in me." Dax shifted, bringing his free hand up to cup her jaw. Her breath caught, her pupils dilated. "You're not broken," he said. "You're just scared. There's a difference." "How would you know?" she challenged, but there was no heat in it. "Because I'm scared too," he admitted. "I've been running from one job to the next, never staying anywhere long enough to matter to anyone. When I found Miri crying in that cage, I saw myself. Something that wanted out so badly it didn't matter where it ended up." Seris's hand tightened around his over Miri's chest. "And where did you end up?" she asked. "Here," Dax said. "With you. With her. With something I didn't plan for and don't completely understand." "That makes two of us," Seris whispered. She leaned forward. This kiss was different from the one on the station. Slower, questioning rather than claiming. Dax answered by deepening it, his hand sliding from her jaw to the back of her neck. Her hair was silk between his fingers. She made a soft sound against his mouth, something almost vulnerable. Beneath their joined hands, Miri's heartbeat steadied further. When they broke apart, Seris rested her forehead against his. Her eyes were closed, her breathing uneven. "This complicates everything," she said. "I know," Dax replied. "I'm still furious with you." "I know that too." "But I need you," she admitted. "We both do. For Miri to survive, we have to stay together, all three of us." Dax looked down at the small creature, resting peacefully now between them, her hand still holding his, her other hand gripping Seris's sleeve. Then he looked back at Seris, at this brilliant, fierce, terrified woman who'd created a piece of herself because she was too afraid to risk giving her heart to anyone real. "Then we stay together," he said. 2 weeks living on Seris's ship taught Dax that proximity bred a particular kind of madness. The vessel was designed for solitary research, which meant tight quarters and shared spaces. Seris had converted the small crew cabin into a recovery room for Miri, filling it with monitoring equipment and comfort items. Soft blankets in shades of blue and green, a nest of pillows, small toys that responded to touch with gentle sounds. Miri recovered slowly, her systems stabilizing as she received constant exposure to both Seris's pheromones and Dax's presence. She'd grown more animated each day, exploring the ship with boundless curiosity. But it was the nights that tested Dax's control. Miri needed them both close while she slept. Some biological imperative written into her genes demanded proximity to the sources of her bonding, which meant Dax and Seris spent every night in the recovery room positioned on either side of Miri's nest. It was torture. Seris slept in minimal clothing, her body curved protectively around Miri. Dax could see the patterns on her skin extending down her shoulders, disappearing beneath the thin fabric she wore. Could smell that sharp, complex scent of her, even across the small space. The fourth night, he woke to find Seris watching him over Miri's sleeping form. The low light from the monitoring equipment cast shadows across her face, making her eyes gleam. "Can't sleep," he whispered. "Miri's cellular cohesion has improved by 43%, she replied quietly. "Her neural activity is optimal. The dual bonding is working better than I projected." "That's good. It also means she's permanently dependent on us both now," Seris said. "The bonding has integrated too deeply to reverse." No going back, no walking away. Seris and Miri were now permanent fixtures in his life. "How do you feel about that?" he asked. Seris was quiet for a moment, her hand absently stroking Miri's hair. "Terrified," she admitted. "I've spent years controlling every variable in my life. Now I'm bound to a man I barely know because my own creation decided we're both necessary." "You're brilliant, beautiful, and only mildly homicidal," Dax offered. "That's better than most of my previous relationships." She huffed something that might have been a laugh. "You're infuriating," she said. "You stole my life's work, disrupted 12 years of research, and somehow made me feel things I specifically designed Miri to experience so I wouldn't have to." "But I haven't felt this alive in years," she finished quietly, "and I hate that you're the reason why." "You could try not hating it," he suggested. "I could try a lot of things," Seris replied, her eyes meeting his. "The question is whether you're brave enough to handle the consequences." The challenge in her voice sent heat coursing through him. "Try me," Dax said. She moved then, carefully extracting herself from Miri's nest and crossing the small space. Dax sat up as she approached, his pulse quickening. Seris straddled his lap in one fluid motion, her thighs bracketing his hips, her hands coming to rest on his shoulders. "I need to tell you something," she said softly, "about what I feel through the genetic link with Miri." "Tell me," Dax replied, his hands settling on her waist. "When you hold her, I feel safe," Seris whispered. "When you comfort her, I feel cherished. When you look at her like she matters, I feel seen in a way I never have before." Her fingers traced along his jaw, her touch feather-light. "And when you look at me, when you touch me, I feel everything magnified 1,000 times because it's real," she continued. "It's just you and me and this situation we've found ourselves in." Dax pulled her closer until no space remained between them. Her breath hitched. "If we do this, there's no walking away," Seris said urgently. "Miri binds us together permanently. We'll be a unit, the three of us. Wherever we go, it has to be together." "I know," Dax said. "I'm difficult," she warned. "Obsessive about my work. I don't sleep enough. I get lost in research for days. I'm not good at expressing emotion." "I'm wanted by half the corporations in this sector," Dax countered. "I drink too much and trust too little. I've spent 15 years running from anything that might make me stay in one place." "Then we're both disasters," Seris concluded. "Perfectly matched disasters," Dax agreed. She kissed him then, and this time there was nothing tentative about it. Her mouth was hot and demanding against his, her body pressing hard along every point where they connected. Dax's hands slid beneath the thin fabric she wore, finding smooth skin beneath. She gasped against his mouth, her fingers tangling in his hair. They broke apart only when breathing became necessary. Seris rested her forehead against his, her eyes closed, her chest heaving. "This is insane," she whispered. "You said that already," Dax reminded her. Miri chirped softly from her nest, a sleepy, content sound. They both turned to look. The small creature hadn't woken, but she'd rolled over in her sleep, one small hand extended toward where they sat together. Seris made a soft sound, something between a laugh and a sob. "She knows," she said. "Even asleep, she knows we're together. She's content because we're finally accepting what she understood from the beginning, that we belong together." Dax pulled her closer, wrapping his arms around her properly. She melted against him, her head tucking beneath his chin. "So what happens now?" he asked quietly. "Now we find somewhere safe," Seris replied. "Away from the corporations who want you and the oversight committees who want my research. We build a life that accommodates all three of us." "That's a tall order," Dax observed. "I'm a genius," Seris reminded him. "I can figure it out." "Our genius," Dax corrected softly. She lifted her head to look at him, her eyes bright. "Our genius," she agreed. They stayed like that until dawn cycle, wrapped around each other while Miri slept peacefully nearby. When the ship's systems chimed, Seris extracted herself reluctantly and returned to her monitoring equipment. "There's a frontier world in the Perseus Arm," she said, pulling up star charts. "Minimal oversight, established research community. We could set up a lab. You could run security." "We?" Dax asked, coming to stand beside her. "We," Seris confirmed, her hand finding his. "Unless you have objections?" "Not a single one," he said. Miri woke then, stretching before bounding over to them. She chirped happily, wrapping herself around both their legs. Seris laughed. Actually laughed, the sound bright and unguarded, and scooped the small creature up. "Good morning, sweet one," she murmured, pressing a kiss to Miri's forehead. Miri chirped again, then reached for Dax. He took her, holding her while she nuzzled against his chest. "She's grown attached to your heartbeat," Seris observed. "She finds it soothing." "Smart girl," Dax said. "She gets that from me," Seris replied with mock seriousness. They stood together in the morning light, the three of them tangled around each other in ways that should have felt complicated, but somehow just felt right. Miri dozed against Dax's chest. Seris leaned into his side, her hand resting over his heart. Her ears were relaxed, tilted toward him in contentment. Outside the viewports, jump space streamed past in ribbons of light. They were heading toward the Perseus Arm, toward a frontier world where three beings who'd found each other by accident could build something intentional. Dax had spent 15 years running. Seris had spent just as long hiding. Miri had spent her entire short existence waiting for both of them to figure out what she'd known instinctively from the moment he'd opened her cage. They were meant to be together. Seris stretched up to kiss him, soft and sweet and full of promise. Miri, trapped between them, made a pleased sound. When they broke apart, Seris returned her attention to the navigation display, already planning their future. Dax held Miri and watched the woman who'd hunted him across the galaxy now chart their course together. He'd broken into that facility looking for a payday. He'd found a crying creature and made a choice. That choice had led him here, to this ship, this woman, this strange and perfect family they'd accidentally created. Miri yawned against his chest, her small hand gripping his shirt. Seris glanced back at them, her expression soft. "Welcome home," she said quietly. And for the first time in 15 years, Dax believed he'd finally found one.